Hi, welcome to Salento with Love. I'm Davide Mengoli and thank God it's Friday. And just like every Friday, I like to answer questions that help you in making a smooth transaction when it comes to purchasing a property in Italy. We cover specifically the area of Salento, which is in Puglia, in the region of Puglia. But the Q&As and the answers that we give are applicable to everywhere through the country. So this week, I would like to deal with purchasing cost. Now, very often I get asked the questions, how much does it cost? What are the costs that you incur in purchasing a property in Italy? Well, just like every country has got different kind of laws that regulate how to purchase a property, Italy has the same things. So it's good to know some of those costs are actually standard, regardless of the purchase. Some of them are variable, so it's interesting to understand what are the variable and what are the fixed costs. So first of all, we have an example over here, and the example is based on a simple property of 100,000 euros. So if you were purchasing a property of 100,000 euros in Italy, the costs that we're going to break down in this section here are what you're going to be looking at spending when you finish with your transaction. It's important to understand that because sometimes you have a tight budget. So if you go outside your budget, you then may find some difficulty. So it's good to know ahead what are your costs that you're going to incur. So let's say that you have found a property that it's with an agency, you have put the offer forward and it's been accepted. And so you're looking at purchasing a property anywhere in Italy for the price of 100,000. Now, first of all, one thing that we need to say that in Italy, agents, realtors, estate agents do charge a fee to the buyer. They also do charge a fee to the seller, but they do charge a fee to the buyer. That fee or percentage normally rotates around about the 3%. It is a fee that it's quite negotiable at times. I mean, depending on the cost. I mean, if you were purchasing a property for 100,000, probably a lot of the agencies will not really like to move very much on that percentage. But potentially, that 3% is negotiable. Now, the reason why I like to talk about that percentage is because for a lot of foreign buyers, paying a percentage to the managing agency or to the property agency in purchasing, it's kind of a new thing. If you are in the UK or in the US, sometimes you may find that it's kind of strange that you pay a percentage to the agency that is actually selling the property. You would think that the vendor would pay a percentage. Well, in Italy, both sides do pay a percentage. So first of all, we have a percentage that 3% needs to take into account. So if you were purchasing a property for 100,000, that percentage will equate to 3,000 euros. So 3,000 euros is the cost that you will have with the agency. Now, when do you pay that 3,000 euros? Well, in 99% of the cases, the property agency will ask for that percentage to be paid at the exchange of contracts. So you've made an offer, the offer has been accepted. It's not unusual for the realtor agency to invoice you at that moment for that 3,000 euros because the job of the agency, it's done. So they will charge you, they will charge the vendor. Of course, they will help you through the process perhaps, but that percentage is paid there and then. So potentially right at the beginning, you could negotiate on that, but just bear in mind you have a 3% that you need to take into account. Now, stamp duty, or in Italian it's called imposta di registro. It's the tax that you pay to the government when you're purchasing a property. That goes between 2% and 9%. Now, we did do a Q&A a few weeks ago talking about how is that calculated. But just to recap on it, imagine it's 2%. 2% will only be applicable if you live in Italy, if you are a resident, and that is your first property, your prima casa. In that case, you will only pay 2%. Now, if you're thinking of relocating to Italy and you're purchasing, you still have 6 months to register your residency and to pay that 2%. So if that is what you're planning to do when you're purchasing, you have that option of postponing that percentage of payment and reducing your payment from 9% to 2%. But even in the case of paying 9% or 2%, we did say in that Q&A that that 2% and that 9% is not calculated on the purchase price. It's not calculated on that 100,000. The reason why I haven't put anything in there is exactly for that reason. That percentage that potentially in your case, not being a resident is your second home, will be 9%. Don't be scared. It's not 9% of 100,000, but it's 9% of the cadastral value. That means that it's the 9% of the value that it was allocated to that property, potentially when it was constructed or built, or in the 1940s when it was actually registered with the cadastral. The cadastral is the land registry office in Italy responsible for holding the title deeds of your property. So a property for 100,000 is probably on the cadastral value for 20,000, 30,000. So that percentage that you pay is on a much less or a reduced value compared to your purchase price. So bear this in mind in putting a figure in this line here. The other thing, it's a visura ipotecaria, visura catastale, equating to about 50 euros each. Those two are what the notary, in some countries the solicitor, would do a search, would do a land registry search to make sure that everything is fine, and then he would do also a search to see if there are any debtors that have actually got a charge on that property. These are the sort of things that you can't see yourself. So the notary will have to do a charge search, and it will have to do a land registry search to make sure that everything is fine, and that has a fixed cost of 50 euros each. Then you have the archiviazione. Once everything is done, well, the same thing. All your title deeds with your name and everything on it will need to be archived. And there is a variable there depending on the size of the transaction for the archiviazione. That could go from 50 to 100 euros. They're small amounts, but it's good to keep them in the list of things that the notary will charge you at the end of their services. Well, coming to the notary, for a purchase of about 100,000, well, depends where you are in Italy, but normally a notary will probably charge around about 1,200 euros, between 900, 1,500. That could be roughly the cost of the notary for finishing off all the transaction, meeting up with you and the vendor, going through what we call the rogito, or the completion process, where everything gets read to you, you accept, you sign, and from that moment the title deeds are transferred in your name. So one last thing that in terms of cost is worth keeping into the picture, because a lot of people don't know this, and sometimes you are confronted with a surprise. And you know, when it's very horrible when somebody says to you, oh no, but you've got to pay this because this is the way it works in Italy. And you think, yes, well, I mean, if somebody would have told me, I would have been really happy to pay. But you're telling me now that we are at the completion stage that I need to find an additional 4% to purchase this property. And perhaps you can't pull out, and 4% on the purchase of 100,000, it's additional money. It's another 4,000 euros that you need to find. So where is that 4,000 or that 4% comes in? IVA. IVA in Italy, well, is the VAT or is the add-on tax. And that would only apply if you are purchasing that property potentially from a building company, from a construction company, or from a company that is selling an asset, is selling a property. That company is VAT registered, so has a partita IVA. And then for that case, we'll need to charge you VAT. Now, VAT in Italy is 22%, but on the sale of a property, it's only 4% regime. So on top of that 100,000, you would find that you will have all this cost, which they will still be there, plus you will have your VAT to add. So when we put everything together, on a purchase of 100,000, we have 3,000, which is your property agency. You have the visura ipotecaria, the visura catastale that we've talked about. So you have the notaio. So you come to about 4,300 euros To add to that, you have your stamp duty, which is the stamp duty, which is the cost that you pay to the government. Now, what are the costs that I haven't listed in here that potentially you will need to take into account? Well, Salento with Love operates as a property finder. In Italy, you may find property finders that will help you to find the perfect property, but that property may be with another agency. Well, that's normally the case. So that 3% is what you would pay to the property agency that is handling the sale of that property. But you then have the cost of your property finder. In our particular case, we charge 1.5% of the purchasing cost. And let me tell you something, we do work for that 1.5%, because doing the due diligence, making sure that we handle the communication between you and the agency, we answer all the questions, we do have an inspection trip, we go and check the property for you, we make sure that everything is fine, and we'll assist you all the way through to the completion stages, even finding a notary for you and even being there with you while you're doing the actual notary finalizing the purchase, or being there and acting on your behalf if you can't travel because of too much of a distance. So we get instructions, we can be there and act on your behalf. So that's an added cost that can actually be put into that. What else can we add on to that? We haven't put it in here on the board, but if you're purchasing a property in Italy or anywhere in the world and you're not getting a mortgage or you're not lending money from the bank, well, you're not going to get a surveyor really inspecting that property, making sure that everything is absolutely perfect. And if you want to make sure that everything is absolutely perfect, then you need to pay an independent figure, which we call the geometra in Italy. So that could be another, depending on the cost of about 100,000, a geometra could be another 200 euros, 250 euros, which is a fantastic price to pay in order to get a report back. Now, yes, it gets added onto the cost, but only if you end up purchasing that property. Otherwise, yes, you may have a cost of 250 euros for somebody to tell you that there is a major issue with that property, so you decide not to go ahead with the purchase. So you have saved money, you haven't spent money, and so you can move on to another property. So those are another couple of costs that you want to keep in mind, and you definitely don't want to skip these passages, because a property finder can really help you identify the right property for you in the right area, making sure that the due diligence gets done, making sure that the communication is there, so the transaction, it's going to be smooth all the way through. And then this added figure of the geometra can make sure that everything reflects the title deeds, the construction type, everything is in order, so then you can move forward to complete on your perfect property. So thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this week Q&A. It's always a pleasure giving advice on how to buy a property in Italy or in Salento, where the sun shines almost through the year. Great. If you have enjoyed the video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Put a like or leave a comment, and if there is a specific question that you would like to get an answer, please put it in the comment. I would like to reply directly to you or deliver a Q&A so I can answer in depth your question. Thank you very much.